All right, it's Tuesday, March 25th, and this is kind of an end of the day recap from yesterday and a pre-market analysis going into today's session. So yesterday, you could see that after closing the week with kind of five kind of neutral bars here in a trading range, price gapped up and it decided to then follow through early in the session to break out of that 5 day range that we were monitoring. So if we look at the 15-minute chart, you can see here we had that trading range, for the last 5 days. Price gapped up yesterday, and then you wanted to see would it immediately fail or would it possibly continue, and obviously it broke above the first bar high for a good buy signal. So there was all kinds of buy activity in the morning. I discussed how I bought Tesla as a good example. Let's see if I can find it. Tesla yesterday had a very nice, move up, and there was a lot of context to head higher. So this was the stock I decided to trade. But in terms of the SPY itself, if we now look at the weekly chart, what's unfolding here to start the week is we have an open here at the purple line. We had a 2-up week last week. We didn't know, given the close of this, if it was going to go up or down, or stay inside for a little while, but it decided to break out and then continue pretty strongly. So we have a 2-up bar here to start the week, and that kind of targets, initially there's a gap here, towards the low of this bar, maybe above 380 or 580, I'm sorry, and we'll see what happens. But for now, as long as we get, we were in compound fashion, maybe working up to the high of that bar if we can get to the midpoint of that area. So if we could head higher, we want to see what kind of strength unfolds. It is possible we just kind of, after that big red down, we're getting kind of a little weekly pullback, and then we can get a 2-down week to get back to the downside. But we're not near that yet, and we have to see if that unfolds. We're kind of on the lookout for that. But for this week anyway, you have the open here at the purple line. So as long as we stay above that, we stay biased to the upside. If this weekly bar wants to fail, we got to first come through the open, and we're going to have to see price action that leads to that. Then we're going to have to get through the midpoint of that bar to get to the lows. If we don't do that, then we're just in 2-up mode in the weekly chart, and possibly building strength day after day all the way up here. But for now, we know right around here there is a gap that things could really lose a little momentum to the upside, and then we monitor for daily bars that roll over and maybe threaten to turn this weekly chart down. But since we have a 2-up week, I'm now monitoring the weekly chart, and even though we might have daily volatility, I want to see that weekly chart fail. So for this week to fail, we got to go through the open and through the midpoint of that, since we have a 2-up week. And as long as we hold the midpoint of this week, we're kind of still biased to the upside, and we'll see how this weekly bar closes. If we continue up, and hold this open, we're going to stay green for the rest of the week. So going into today, we have the pre-market range between the blue lines, and and we're moving up, with about an hour to go before the open here. So we'll see, if we, follow through above the highs of this bar and continue our green of this range and continue our green daily chart up. Again, we have targets up in here now, these next three, and that kind of is in line with a weekly gap. So you expect a little higher, but I had been always talking about how maybe in this downtrend you get a 1, 2, 3 kind of pullback to an overall trend line in here, and then at that point you got to monitor for the rollover, but that's going to unfold in steps where the daily bar will fail first, and that could lead to some kind of a weekly failure. But to me, until we get a weekly failure, I'm biased to the upside now. I'll be looking for trading opportunities, and for today, if you don't get below this pre-market low and any kind of negative action to even threaten a 2-down day, getting below the low of yesterday, then we're biased to the upside. We'll just have to see, maybe we open up green and continue higher again. Maybe we have to get a little bit, if this pre-market range stays, maybe we get a red and then to green move that then threatens to take out that intraday high and maybe starts an uptrend on the day. I don't know how much momentum after this gap up. Are we going to keep gapping up and going strong, or does it have to have a little internal liquidity taking out before you resume the uptrend? But we know the context now that today, let's see if we stay above the midpoint of the prior day on this whole opening, which is the low of the pre-market range. And certainly if anything fails in here, we have to get below the open of the week to even begin getting back into this range range. So that's kind of what's going on. Bias to the upside. Good day of trading to the upside yesterday. Kind of two pushes up, and there was a little fake move here. If you decided to buy, I can see on a secondary move this green bar. If you bought it within two, you had about a half hour to see that it wasn't half. That might have been a small loss, but then there was a re-entry here to kind of move to the close to the highs of the day. And the initial trade early up was a good trade in the morning to the upside. So bias to the upside now. Don't be surprised day after day if we go green, 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 green. I mean, that's kind of the mode we're in at the moment. But we will see what unfolds for today, and that'll give us even a clearer sign of how this weekly chart is, starting to unfold.